1 minute past. Oh, there's a couple of people still being
people
let
coming
in.
in. Yeah, 24 in.
Okay, we'll make a start. Hi everybody, welcome back to our last session, number 5. We're going to start as we always do, just with the soothing rhythm breathing. I hope everyone's okay and that you've not had too stressful a day at work if you've been at work. So just as always, getting into a comfortable upright posture. Both feet flat on the floor in front of you. And just imagine that there's a string holding your head up to the ceiling. So your back is upright, but in its natural S shape. And if you're comfortable, closing your eyes, or if not, just letting your gaze soften slowly, softly in front of you. And just thinking of greeting a loved one. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's an animal, but just imagine seeing them in front of you and being really pleased to see them. So just adjusting your facial expressions accordingly, maybe settling your face into a half smile. And just start to pay attention to your breath. So you might notice your breath with your chest rising and falling. Or maybe the feeling of the air coming in and out of your nostrils. Perhaps noticing the cold air going in and the warm air going out. Maybe putting a hand on your abdomen, just seeing if you notice your breath there. Perhaps your stomach just going in and out slightly as you fill your lungs. Maybe you can see if you notice your breath in the back of your body. Perhaps your rib cage expanding and contracting. And you find that your mind will get distracted, because that's what minds do, our tricky brains. When that happens, just gently and kindly bringing it back to focus on your breath. And then just see if you can just start to slow your breath down slightly. Perhaps taking a deeper breath than you normally do. And just holding it a little bit at the top of your in-breath. And then a gentle, long, slow breath out. And if it helps on your out breath, just saying the words in your mind. Mind slowing down. And again on your out breath, body slowing down. Maybe just starting to feel a bit more grounded in your seat. Perhaps your feet feel a bit heavier on the floor. And just relaxing back a little bit into your seat. Getting your mind online and ready for the session. And then when you're ready, just opening your eyes, ending the exercise in your own time, bringing your attention back to the room, and hopefully bringing this feeling of being slowed down into the rest of the session. you want me to share the slides, Lee?
Yeah, if you would.
Yeah. Right, hopefully you can see that.
Yeah. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the fifth and last session. So, just looking here about what we're going to do. This is what we're going to go through this week. I'm going to look at what we've done so far. Then we're going to look a little bit at compassionate reasoning. Then how we actually put our compassionate self to work. And other flows of compassion.
Do you want the next slide?
Yeah.
Oh, doesn't seem to be working. There we go.
So just looking at why compassion. So why compassion? Because it helps us take responsibility for our minds, because it's a courageous motivation to engage with other people. There's a story of two wolves from North American folklore, and there's a grandfather walking his grandson and talking to him about the internal battle that's inside all of us. And he says to his grandson, there are two wolves inside all of us. One's vengeful, angry, resentful, self-pitying and scared. And the other wolf is compassionate, faithful, hopeful, caring. And the grandson asks him, which wolf's going to win, grandfather? And the grandfather says, the one that you feed. So what we're looking at is what compassion is and how do we feed it? How do we encourage it? So we've looked at the definition of compassion, and the definition that we use is a sensitivity to suffering in self and others with a commitment to alleviate and prevent it. And we've looked at the two psychologies. We're going to go over that again today, about the first bit of the sensitivity to suffering, and then the second about our commitment to do something about it. So the third one, we all just find ourselves here. We didn't choose to be born, didn't choose to be born into the family we found ourselves in. And so much of what happens to us is not our fault. Fourth one, we're shaped by evolution and social circumstance, most of which we have very little control over. So we're all part of the flow of life. We're a product of millions of years of evolution. That's just who we are. And the next point ties into that. We have tricky brains. The old brain plus the new brain gives us a very tricky brain. It's a bit of a simplification. We've looked a bit more in depth at what this means, but it's useful to think of us sometimes as having an old brain and a new brain. And it's a simple model that people can understand. And we told you the story of the zebra and the lion and how the old brain and the new brain connect together. In us, we have a highly developed new brain as well as this old brain that often takes over. And that causes us all sorts of suffering, causes us to ruminate and catastrophize. We looked at the three circles and how the three emotional regulation systems and how we need them all in balance. And we looked a bit about how we as humans have an inbuilt negativity bias to keep us safe. So if we're walking in the woods late at night and we hear a noise, we don't assume it's somebody's lost little dog. We go, what's that? And go, disappear, run. Our fight, flight, our threat system is brought online. So using the body to calm the mind, we've looked a little bit at that. We've looked at soothing rhythm breathing. We looked at body scan. We've looked at various ways in which we can help ourselves get into stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. We looked at how we can use notice and return. So we sit and we breathe. We notice that we're distracted. Our tricky brain takes us off all over the place. That's okay. That's what we have to deal with. And we begin to learn that we can do something about our attention. We can notice that we're distracted, and we can laugh at the fact that we've got a tricky brain, and we can gently encourage our attention to settle back onto our breath. In that way, we make the body, we make our mind a safe haven, a secure base. And you can see how this, we've talked a little bit how this connects to attachment theory, how we are looking to provide our own safe base, our own place that we can go when our anxiety goes up. So just like our primary carer would when we were a child, if we were lucky, would see our threat system rise, and it would help soothe that and allow us to go back out and explore. And the last one, mindfulness, is key. A mind that doesn't know itself can be dangerous. So we've looked at that. We acknowledge that much of what happens to us isn't our fault. That's fair enough. So where does our responsibility lie? Well, we'll talk about that more again today. Well, it lies in understanding that we have a tricky brain and that we can be skillful and we can do more helpful things to make us safe and to be compassionate for ourselves, for other people, and in the world. And that's a win-win situation, as far as I can see. Yeah.
And I think the only thing I'd add is just coming back to the using the body to calm the mind, just remembering that when we are in states of high emotion, particularly kind of threat-based emotions, anger, anxiety, disgust, our frontal lobes, that is almost our new brain that kind of helps us think things through and plan and reason and soothe ourselves, that goes offline. For good reason, because the body's kind of in a threat zone. So calming our body helps to bring our frontal lobes back online and help us reason and think things through a little bit better. So that's why we always start with calming our bodies. We don't always have to be in our soothing system in order to be compassionate. Sometimes we need a little anger in our lives to make us stand up for ourselves or make us stand up for the rights of other people. Or if you imagine a caregiver defending their child, which is a very compassionate action, it may well come from the threat system. So it's important not to conflate the soothing system with compassion, but to know that our soothing system can be really helpful for us, and it makes it much easier to sort of, and that often sets the conditions for compassion when we're training compassion in our minds. So the other things that we covered, as Lee said, we've covered the different types of emotions, so our threat systems, the anger, anxiety, disgust, the emotions that are all focused on trying to keep us safe, getting us away from danger, making us fight danger if we need it. And then we've talked about our drive system, those emotions associated with get up and go. So the dopamine, the brain's reward system, it's all about achieving resources and making us kind of get out there in life. And then our soothing system, which we've focused on a lot, those calmer, feeling connected. And I think Lee said at some point that the soothing system is often about affiliation and feeling connected and having that relationship. And the most important relationship that we have is the one that we have with ourselves. So, and we've talked about the different flows of compassion. So compassion that we have to ourselves, compassion that we might direct to others, and also receiving compassion from others. But we've really focused in the last 4 sessions on compassion to ourselves, because we figured that we go into this course is attended by people that are working in healthcare, and often people working in healthcare have got quite a well-developed compassion to others, although things can certainly get in the way of it for us, and certain systems often struggle, but we perhaps find it a bit harder to be compassionate to ourselves at times. So it's been a purposeful neglect of the other flows, but we are going to touch on those today, because really for compassion to be helpful to us, we do need all of the 3 different flows. And then we've looked at barriers to compassion. So we talked about fears that we might have of it, if it's not something that we've been used to, or perhaps if we've had experiences in our early lives where compassion has then been followed, or connection with other human beings has then been followed by abuse, then we might be much more fearful of it. So that's the fears. We've also, there's the blocks that we might have to compassion. So when we really want to develop it, but certain things might get in the way, maybe not sure how. And then resistances that we can have to compassion. So perhaps some of the things are a sense that, it might mean that I'm weak. It might mean that I'm letting people off the hook. So trying to kind of identify those in ourselves. And then we've, as I said, we've really focused on developing compassion to ourselves. So really focusing on the kind of meditations and things of wishing ourselves well, of thinking about the kind of core qualities that we might need to do that. And particularly we went through talked about the 2 schools example, where you could send your child to a school where people, whenever they made mistakes, it was pointed out and people came down on them like a ton of bricks and didn't let them forget it, and kept going over and over what they'd done wrong and beat them up for it. Or the school where mistakes are noticed but understood and reasoned and pointed out, but in a kind of caring way, and understanding the underlying cause of it, and then encouragement and reassurance about the future, and deciding which, I think most people know which school they would want their child or loved one to go to. So we've got this intuitive wisdom in us. And then we looked at a functional analysis of our self-critic. So trying to kind of imagine our self-critic in front of them, what they would look like, what they would sound like, and what their intention and wishes and fears were, to try and kind of understand it more and perhaps have some compassion towards it. And then comparing that with our newly developed or hopefully built upon compassionate self, and comparing the compassionate self's wishes, and trying to point out this difference between kind of beating ourselves up for things or having compassion focused self-correction. It's fine to have a wish to want things to be different and our behavior to be different, but it's about the way that we do that with ourselves, and in the way that's most helpful to ourselves. And then we talked, as Lee mentioned, about the 2 psychologies of compassion, the sort of attributes that we might need to develop in order to turn towards suffering, which I'm going to go back through again in a minute, and the skills, and the particular skills that we focused on are attention and imagery. So this is a summary from CFT. I can't think which actual book this is from. I think it's reproduced from The Compassionate Mind originally, by Paul Gilbert. But this summarises the different skills and attributes that we need. So the inner circle, the attributes, these are qualities that we can develop on to help us turn towards suffering. So we need that sensitivity, need to kind of be aware of what might block our emotions, what makes us kind of avoid certain experiences. We all do avoid certain things. How many times have you watched the TV and an advert comes on appealing, showing somebody in distress, appealing for money, and how often do we turn away from that or change the channel because it's really hard to sort of tolerate? But so being able to mentioning kind of distress tolerance, but also being able to create an environment where we can be sensitive to distress and we don't sort of dissociate from it. And then being able to have empathy. It's easier in some cases than others, but and then really trying to kind of understand what's behind behaviour, people's perspectives, our own perspectives, and then this sense of sympathy as well. Obviously, that often has negative connotations, but sympathy in this view is actually about being moved by distress, and actually kind of doing something about it. But that's that emotional being moved by it, and linked with care for well-being as well. You know, we could be a psychopath and have empathy, and know that by harming somebody's family members it would get to them more. Empathy would tell us that. So compassion, it's really important to have the motive behind it and actually be moved by distress and have a care for well-being as well. So trying to kind of use this to reflect on ourselves and what, or perhaps sometimes people we're working with as well, like what might get in the way for people. And then this issue of non-judgment. I think I mentioned that we're very tribal as human beings. We find it much easier when people we find compassion towards our family members much easier, that we're much less kind of judgmental than perhaps our out group. And if people are quite like us, it's much easier to have that connection with them and apply all of these things. But when people are very different, perhaps people have been watching the news and seen people kind of supporting Donald Trump and things, and maybe had some sort of anger towards that. I know there's different kind of political views and perhaps starting to feel quite judgmental, but trying to really kind of, it doesn't mean that we don't have preferences and we don't have beliefs or anything, but understanding what sometimes what might be getting in the way of our non-judgment and an ability to turn towards the suffering of other people or ourselves. So those are the attributes. And then the skills, specific skills. So we've looked at imagery, and we focused last time on sort of developing safe place imagery, that sense of safety in our own minds. And we've thought quite a lot about attention as well, practicing mindfulness and learning to direct our attention at will. But also understanding that we get distracted. That's what human brains do. So having that non-judgmental when we bring it back. So learning to focus on particular things, and these are the ones we've briefly talked about, but perhaps not focused as much on. So feeling, research has shown more and more that generating feelings of kind of warmth and connectedness and kindness towards either ourselves or others, and really focusing on generating that feeling can be massively helpful to our well-being. But keeping in mind that sometimes the feeling might come second. Sometimes we the hardest thing is to have a level of compassion for somebody that isn't like us and that's perhaps being quite harmful towards us. So we might not always have a feeling of warmth and kindness and things inside us, but we've still got this care for well-being. So compassion overall is a motivation, but knowing that with compassion training, that feeling can be something to work on and can be a really useful element and is helpful to well-being. And then sensory things. So we focus a lot, we've done a lot of soothing rhythm breathing, and knowing that our soothing system can lay the foundation for being able to practice these skills. But the sensory aspect as well of, we know that using kind of grounding skills, using all of our senses to help calm us can be really helpful. So maybe noticing is there particular things that are calming to you, and reflecting on that, and what kind of senses have you been using in being able to create that. And then focusing on compassionate behaviour as well, choosing to do things that are helpful. Sometimes we might need to act, and the feelings and warmth of compassion can kind of come after. But maybe planning in particular things in your day, maybe doing one kind act to yourself or to others in the day, and purposely creating compassionate behaviour in order to build on that. And then finally, reasoning. So we've kind of brushed over this really, but reasoning can be, and the reason I've not paid that much attention to it is that I know that the predominant model in healthcare that a lot of people have an understanding of, maybe not everyone on this course, but I suspect people are quite familiar with cognitive behaviour therapy model, challenging thoughts, and we're often very reasoning-led human beings anyway. So I didn't want to kind of teach your granny to suck eggs, but at the same time there is something specific about compassionate reasoning, about kind of validation and things, this specific kind of element to it, and bringing in all of these other skills. So we're going to have a little look in a minute at just some examples of compassionate reasoning, just to kind of touch on that and make sure people are clear on it. But then all of these things have an element of warmth that should go throughout it in order to be able to make that emotional connection with it. And so, but the best thing is that CFT has almost summarised all of this into just 3 things to remember after we've gone through all of that, and that is that we have this wisdom, this knowledge about we all just find ourselves here, the kind of that we're all struggling and trying our best with these tricky brains, that we have strength in order to tolerate distress and turn towards suffering, and that we've got a commitment to actually do something about it. So having those 3 when we do our meditations, that focusing on those 3 things can make it easier for us, rather than having to go through kind of certainly all of the attributes and things in the middle. So hopefully, I feel like I've talked for a while there, but hopefully that's given a good overview of all of the kind of main model of compassionate mind training. I think I'm handing over to you now, Lee. Am I? Do you want to come back on the camera? So I stop sharing?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Esther. So yes, now we're going to look at developing our compassionate self. We're going to do an exercise. We did wonder whether, are we going to ask if anybody wants to request any exercises, Esther? We've got the session planned, but if there were any specific exercises that anybody needed to go over, we could do that instead. But I don't think we'll have time to do all of these things. I don't know whether if there's anybody with any strong feeling or strong thoughts about anything they might like to do. No? We'll go ahead then. So here we're going to do an exercise on developing our compassionate self. And we start off as we always do with soothing rhythm breathing. So if we do that, and then I'll talk you through what we're going to do, if that's okay. So if you can settle yourself in your chair, feet on the ground, feel the chair that your body's in, imagine your facial expression, slight smile perhaps. Ideally you're suspended from the top of your head, and just allow your attention to settle on your breathing. You can help slow your breathing by saying to yourself as you breathe out, mind slowing down. Body slowing down. So now settle into that. Be aware of your mind, tricky brain flying off, thoughts coming into your mind. That's okay. When you notice that, just notice it, and then gently bring your attention back to your breathing. And then I'm going to ask you to imagine your compassionate self right there in front of you. And that compassionate self will embody certain qualities. It could be based on you, based on someone else. And as with all these exercises, I'm not looking to force anything, just stay there with your breathing and try and do your best. So we've spoken a bit about the qualities this compassionate self has. First one is wisdom. Understanding we have tricky brains. Mind gets caught in loops. Become overcome with strong emotion. Difficult to control. Didn't choose a lot of things in our lives. A lot of it's not our fault. But we can be responsible, helpful, and skillful. So along with the wisdom, this compassionate self has strength and authority. It comes from the wisdom and understanding of the human condition. We're all in this together. And a commitment to do something about this. Courage to turn towards the difficult things, pain, suffering, understanding that we can tolerate discomfort, fears about change. So imagine your compassionate self has this strength and authority, has that inner confidence. About your commitment, about your desire to alleviate and prevent suffering in yourself and others. Just feel your body breathing. And then moving towards the image of what you look like. How tall are you? What's your appearance like? What sort of clothes are you wearing? Does this compassionate self look the same as you? Does it look any different? You're strong. So how might you stand if you're strong? What will your facial expression be? How about your voice tone? If you have some sort of image, might not be a clear image, might be blurred, might be a bit bitty, might be strong, clear. Imagine it there right in front of you. Strong, wise, committed. Imagine slowly moving towards this compassionate self. As you get nearer to it, pay attention to what it looks like, its posture, facial expression. As you get closer and closer, imagine merging with it, stepping into its shoes. Look out of its eyes. Look out of its eyes with the motivation to be kind, caring, compassionate in the world. Notice how you feel. Spend a little while just being in that body of your ideal compassionate self. You can walk about a bit, you can sit down. Notice how you feel. Then you can allow that image to fade. And you can become aware of your body breathing. Become aware of the sensation of the air as it moves in and out of your body. Feel your body in your chair. And then you can take a nice deep breath. And you can breathe out and open your eyes. How was that, guys? Anybody got any comments about that?
I found it hard to imagine an image, but then I did manage to do that, and then I really appreciated stepping into it and kind of feeling it in my own body and things.
Yeah, I find it hard to bring a very clear image to mind. It tends to be very fuzzy. Oh, Julie enjoyed it. Julie enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you, Julie.
So
sorry, go on. No, I was just going to say it. Anybody else? Yeah, hang
on. Craig,
Indeed.
Yeah. A useful stop guard to make sure we're not getting too frazzled with people. Yes, I think that's brilliant. Joy found it powerful. Good.
Yeah, so all these things. Yeah, all good. These, well, you know, our intention here is to give you a sense of this, you know, to pique your interest and so you can carry on learning about this. And all these practices are things we take small steps and we need to practice them to get better at them, just like if we were learning to play the piano or something. We'd have to practice. Oh, good. Thanks, Julie. Good. Glad you enjoyed it.
So my challenge now to people is to try and keep this sense of a compassionate self as we move on to the next thing. So I just want to, as I said before, just really briefly talk to you about compassionate reasoning and just give you some examples. So hopefully these will then help you as we move on to the next bit. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So these are some examples of compassionate reasoning, but really focusing on actually validating and understanding our distress. So it's not about just saying it will be okay. There's always an element of saying this is understandable. So just read these out, but maybe imagine them, saying them from your compassionate self that you've developed in the last exercise. So it's understandable that I feel like this at the moment. Life is hard and other people experience situations like this. My automatic better safe than sorry threat system has been activated, so I'm likely to think in a biased way. This is understandable and not my fault. This moment of pain or sorrow or suffering is a natural part of life, but it will pass. It's understandable. These thoughts are just events in my mind rather than reflections about me. Yeah, we don't choose our thoughts. They just come and go. And perhaps I can look at the bigger picture. Is there anything I'm missing or minimizing because my mind's only focusing on the negative experiences? So just keeping those in mind as we move on to the next exercise, I wanted to just, and perhaps you have some of your own as well that will come up in the next exercise, but we really wanted to focus on putting your compassionate self to work. So just want you to try and stay in this compassionate self, but just try and bring to mind a time maybe recently where you've had a particularly difficult emotion to tolerate. Maybe it's been an argument with somebody, perhaps it was anger, perhaps there was some sadness there, or maybe it's feeling really anxious and perhaps being on the receiving end of some criticism, or perhaps that criticism came from yourself. So just as we always do, just trying to reconnect with your compassionate self through that soothing rhythm breathing. So noticing your breath, taking a deep breath in and a long, slow breath out. Saying those words that will hopefully become a habit on the out breath. Mind slowing down. And again, body slowing down. And feeling that sinking into your chair. And just see if you can reconnect with this sense of a compassionate self. So perhaps imagining that those qualities of wisdom, you know, the knowledge that we're all in it together, that we don't choose half of these things that happen in our lives and that make up who we are. And just think about where you feel that in your body. And then this sense of strength. And think about where you feel that in your body, perhaps adjusting your body posture. And remembering your facial expressions. And then most importantly, just remembering the commitment that you have to be able to alleviate and turn towards your distress. And then just really try and imagine this from your compassionate self, this difficult emotion that you've had to deal with. And what was so difficult about it? And what was so hard about the situation? Perhaps you might remember the kind of thoughts that went through your mind. And how it felt in your body. And just imagine now, from your compassionate self, just sending some messages of support to yourself. Really, maybe you think about some of these statements that we went through on the last slide. What could you say to yourself? What's your voice tone like as you say it? And focus on giving this message of validation that perhaps we don't choose our emotions, we don't choose our thoughts. This is bound to be difficult for us as a human being. And if it helps, maybe picturing yourself as you that's struggling to deal with the emotion, and send that message looking out of the eyes of your compassionate self, sending messages of warmth, feeling of warmth with it. Not messages of support that you can tolerate this. And I'm really thinking about how that lands on you, how it feels to be supported by your compassionate self. And then when you're ready, just letting that image go, bringing your attention back to your breath, reconnecting with the room around you as you end the exercise. Opening your eyes if you have had them shut. So I don't know if anyone wants to comment on how that was for them. That's a different example of putting your compassionate self to work, practicing these things. How did you find it, Lee?
Yeah. I sometimes find it hard to separate the different exercises. They're subtly different in terms of compassionate self, compassionate other, receiving compassion. So I find the more I practice it, the more I can use that understanding. But it's quite hard sometimes to get the difference between this as an idea, as an abstract idea. But by practicing it, I find I begin to embody it a bit more and understand it a little bit more.
Okay. I'm really conscious of the time. I'm wondering if we should move on to the next exercise. I think you were going to do something around practicing compassion, receiving compassion, which we kind of touched on a little bit in that exercise as well, and developing our compassionate other as well, a perfect nurturer. Is that right?
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm aware we've got 10 minutes and I don't want to rush this. I'm just wondering what we should do. Maybe I'll go through it quite quickly and we should end with the loving kindness to self at the end. Yeah. Shall we do that?
Yeah, okay. We've got some comments that people found it emotional, and yeah, it was really connecting, wasn't it, with a difficult emotion. It can be really, really difficult to do, particularly if we don't do it that often as well.
And also, for me, if I open myself out to a time when I receive compassion from someone else, I also open myself up to my own suffering and what I was feeling. So it can be quite emotional and difficult because I begin to remember those feelings that I was having, that somebody was compassionate to me, and what I was feeling at the time in order to bring that compassion out of them. And that can be quite emotional. Yes, shall we move on then? Anything else? I won't dwell on this too much. Well, as we said, we're trying to get a lot in, and we don't want to sort of try and get too much in and confuse people or just try and force too much into the hour. So I'll talk a little bit about, we've spoken about the different flows of compassion. And as Esther said, we focus most on developing compassion to ourselves, from ourselves, because of that relationship is most important. Receiving compassion from other people, really important, receiving it from a compassionate other. So maybe I'll just quickly look at that. we've spoken about the fact that the wisdom is a part of this. So maybe if we just go into our posture and our soothing rhythm breathing, and just relax a little bit, remind ourselves of our bodies and our breathing, remind ourselves of the idea of wisdom. So think of the qualities of compassion that we would value in someone else, that person that was giving us compassion. They understand the nature of suffering, but they understand we have a tricky brain. They know that what happens inside us isn't our fault. They're strong and courageous, quietly confident. They can tolerate your distress and difficulties, and they will be there for you no matter what. Doesn't matter what, they'll be there for you. They have a very deep and caring commitment for you, and are there to help and support you. They don't criticize. What they want to do is help build compassion for everybody. They want you to take responsibility and find ways of being that are helpful and supportive to you. So this compassionate other, what might they look like? They don't have to be human. They could be an animal. They could be a tree, a cloud, a mountain. Just allow any image to come to you of this compassionate other. Somebody that embodies all these things: strength and wisdom, commitment. How did they become so compassionate? And they offer their strength, their wisdom, their understanding, and their support. They offer that to you, for you. So what do you feel knowing how committed they are to being there for you? So imagine this compassionate other there in front of you now, and they say to you, may you be well. May you be happy. May you find the strength and courage to tolerate your difficulties in life. Imagine them looking at you with kindness, wishing you well. They feel connected to you. Just bask in that feeling. Feel the breath moving in and out of your body. Sensation of the air moving in and out of your body. Take a nice deep breath in. And open your eyes as you breathe out. So, I don't know how that was for you. I felt the need to sort of hurry through that in a way. I hope it wasn't too rushed. That just to show you that the slight differences between compassionate self, like a compassionate other, compassionate friend could be somebody that's always there for you. It's like you've got your best friend, you've got somebody there watching your back, emotionally, psychologically, there all the time for you. Any comments about that? Anybody? Felt it was a bit rushed, but I didn't want to go.
I liked it, Lee, and I found it helpful you saying that it could be an object or something, and I loved it. I took on unusually this idea of a tree, and it really worked for me. It was even in the short period that we did, had this image of a big wise tree that was so much, they're on the earth so much longer than us, and yeah, I found it really kind of grounding. So thank you.
Yeah, and some people, you can have a compassionate gang. You know, you can have 3 or 4 people. You know, I didn't it good, Julie. Thank you. I felt I was trying to get through it a little bit. I hope it didn't feel rushed. Good, thank you. Yeah, so you can have like a compassionate committee, a gang of compassionate friends who you can call on. And that helps that secure attachment, that secure base, that safe haven. Oh, old tree too. Excellent.
Yeah. We could have a forest of wise trees helping us. Yeah. Yeah, it was easier to manage a compassionate other for me or to a tree. Yeah, so you've really struck a chord with us there, Lee. I've never done that before. So
good. Good. So we hope we've piqued your interest. That's the idea, to get you reading more and looking online, going to the Compassionate Mind Foundation. There's loads of videos there, loads of Paul Gilbert videos on YouTube. Okay.
I think this is that's a lovely message from Christine there. I guess this is sort of obviously the last one. Thank you so much to everybody for kind of being with us at this time. I mean, I've certainly really enjoyed it. And got a lot out of it, and even just being able to have this nice space at the end of the day to do some of the exercises myself has been great, and it's been a joy to sort of share some of the CFT principles with people. Yeah,
I echo that.
So should we kind of leave as we normally do and just practice some loving kindness meditation and finish on that? Got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, do a short one, shall we, to finish?
Thank you very much for your comments.
Yes, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it immensely, and thank you all so much.
Okay, so one last time here, getting into this comfortable upright posture. I think that you pretty much know how to do soothing rhythm breathing right now. So just trying to connect with your breath a little bit. Closing your eyes if you're comfortable. Just having on the out breath those words, mind slowing down. Body slowing down. And then just on your out breath, saying the words in your mind and focusing on the feeling too. May I be well. May I be free from suffering. May I be able to tolerate the distress that life chooses for me. And then maybe imagining perhaps the people that are in close proximity to us, if you're at home or at work, your neighbours, just imagining them there in their homes or in their workplace too. And just imagine sending out to them the same kind of feelings. So perhaps saying on your out breath, may you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be able to tolerate the things that life throws at you. And then maybe just imagining the other people that have been through these CFT, these compassionate mind training sessions with us. And perhaps the people that are watching on YouTube too afterwards. I'm just trying to keep all of those people in mind. And just wishing them well. So may you be well. May you be free from suffering. May you be able to tolerate the things that life throws at you. And as we end the exercise and end these sessions, just trying to take this forward into the rest of your day, this sense of connection with other people, wishing yourself, your neighbours and the other people that are involved in this process well. So slowly ending the exercise in your own time, opening your eyes, bringing your attention back. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. May you be well.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Julie, Christine. Thank you.
Well done, everybody.
I think we're still recording.
Oh, good. I don't mind. Well done, everybody. That was really good.
Well done, everybody.
Yeah, that was lovely. That was lovely at the end, Esther. That was really good.
Paris needs to switch the recording off.
Yeah.
He'll edit this bit out anyway, hopefully.
Yeah.